Well, President Trump has kicked a hornet's nest on several things. He's made Big Pharma mad. He's made Democrats mad. He's made people that want refugees to come to America mad because he might bring some white people in. I'm going to go through this and other big news stories with Kurt Schlichter. Kurt, thank you for joining me again.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, just some background. Kurt is a lawyer and also an author, and has really great insight. He's out in California. I want to get your thoughts on this because I don't fully understand the ramifications because I'm not a lawyer. But DC Drano, a Washington, D.C. lawyer, said White House Stephen Miller confirms President Trump is considering suspending the writ of habeas corpus to deport millions of illegal aliens, no more allowing radical judges to infringe on his constitutional deportation powers. I want to start with your thoughts on him possibly doing a suspension of writ of habeas corpus. I don't fully understand what that means. And then I want to talk to you about your opinion on these judges interfering with a sitting president.
Well, look, Donald Trump is a masterful negotiator, and there are a number of techniques that, I used when I was actively being a lawyer that he uses, including mark out the furthest possible extent of your position, which would be end habeas corpus. Habeas corpus is a civil petition to a judge to release a person from custody, essentially challenge their confinement. And it is, Abe Lincoln suspended it. Of course, one of my favorite tweets of the last 20 years was when a bunch of never Trumpers were outraged about this and said, "I can't believe Trump would. This is a new low for Trump, suspending habeas corpus." Of course, that would be the Lincoln Project, Abraham Lincoln having famously suspended the right to habeas corpus during the Civil War. So, thank you, never Trump, now irony free. I think that's a shot across the bow to people like Justice Roberts. The courts have gotten far over their skis, both procedurally and substantively, in their campaign to stop the voters from achieving what they voted for. And I think sometimes people forget, that our system of checks and balances, one of the checks on the court's power is the executive power, the one with the army, just going, nah, I'm not going to do that. And of course, that's not in the Constitution. It doesn't have to be. It simply is. If the executive branch says, nah, you've overstepped and I'm simply not going to enforce your dumb, bogus, unjust, improper ruling, I guess they could cry harder, but there's not a lot else they could do. I mean, what are you going to do? Hold Trump in contempt? Trump, you're in contempt of court. Send some of your people to go arrest you and take you to a jail that you also run. Doesn't seem like a particularly effective threat. Now, as checks and balances go, that's a kind of an extreme one. But the court's real power comes from its credibility, and its credibility comes from being neutral and applying the law as written, as opposed to making it a kind of judicial Mad Libs to be filled out by every commie, pinko, and degenerate judge out there. It is judges should be modest. Think of it as like a small guy at a bar. Maybe you shouldn't get in a lot of fights with the bikers because there's not a lot you can do. So I think Trump's handling this whole thing correctly. He's appealing all these cases. He's challenging the procedural nonsense. The temporary restraining orders, they're really more like permanent injunctions. And some of this stuff is very in the weeds. As a guy who did 30 years of law, including in front of, federal judges, I do want to emphasize just how crazy and unusual a lot of this stuff is. This is not normal stuff. So if you're looking at it going, that seems weird, congratulations, your instinct is accurate. It is weird. It's weird because it's improper. It's weird because these guys don't really care about the law. They just want to stop Trump from doing the things he wants to do, like throwing illegal aliens out of this country. And Trump's got, Trump is fighting it by doing what I would do when I would face a crazy guy. One of those guys who, I'm a sovereign citizen. This is a flag of admiralty. You have no jurisdiction over me kind of nonsense. That happens occasionally. And this is not unrelated to that. And the way I would do it is I wouldn't go screaming to the judge. I was often representing a company or something. I wouldn't go screaming to the judge saying, well, this man is obviously crazy and he's an idiot to boot and he's stupid and this is dumb. I would walk in and I would very, very rationally and politely explain exactly why the guy's legal position was wrong. The fringe on the flag doesn't make it a flag of admiralty. Even if it did, this court would still have jurisdiction. And I would treat them like normal, sane people. And the judge would eventually get around to ruling in my favor. And that's what's going to happen here. They are wrong on the law. They're not correct about the substance. It is not outside the president's prerogative to fire useless, worthless people. It is actually, part of his powers are to fire useless people who are doing nothing but causing trouble for the country.
Can I clarify? Can I clarify one thing with you, Kurt? You said that this is like a positioning thing, and this was a shot across the bow at Justice Roberts.
Oh, yeah.
Are you referring to the fact that Justice Roberts and Justice Sotomayor have basically insinuated that they have the power to tell Trump what to do?
Well, they do have some power to tell him what to do, in the sense that, the courts do exist. The problem is that they are overstepping those bounds, and they are slowing down Trump's legitimate exercise of his powers. And that's, that's a problem. That can't continue to happen. And we've got to, we've got to deal with that. And Trump's dealing with it. And he's dealing with it kind of forthrightly, just by sending his folks in and making sure that they litigate these cases, pressing them to go as fast as they can. The court's being a little slower than I think it should be. But, that's the best strategy, because then the fight is not about whether Trump is somehow undermining the system. It puts the focus back on what the courts are doing. And I think tactically and strategically, that's the best way for him to go at this juncture.
Okay. Let me switch gears with you. He just signed a new executive order where he's basically slapping Big Pharma, saying, hey, Congress has been telling you guys that you're unfairly taking advantage of Americans. Other countries, you guys are selling your prescription drugs for 50 to 80% less. We're now going to have this new rule. If you're a preferred trading country and you're paying $100 and Americans are paying $1,000, they're now paying $100, or you've got to raise your price. What are your thoughts on him taking this big shot at Big Pharma?
I think this is a huge step, and I think it's very important. We have had post-war trade relations with the rest of the world, and we saw it on tariffs too, where the United States was, out of its own interest in part, allowing the rest of the world to catch up, because the rest of the world was just essentially, a lot of it was destroyed after World War II, and we could do it. We were big and strong, and we can afford to do that. Sort of an extension of the Marshall Plan. Fast forward 80 years later. Is this something we still need to be doing? I say no. I say it is not something that we still need to be doing. And I think Trump feels the same way. The question is how we get these changes done. And it is far past time that we make some of these changes. Increase, make more reciprocal tariffs, more equal big pharma relations with the rest of the world. I'm going to write about later this week at Town Hall. A lot of conservatives are up in arms about these because the basic conservative position is, it's bad to have tariffs. It's always bad to have quote unquote price controls. It defeats the free market. Yeah, well, time out. Tariffs are the opposite of a free market. Okay, if there are tariffs against our goods, it's not a free market.
Yeah, good point.
So the issue isn't, are we making it not a free market if we have no tariffs? It's a free market. What is the argument that America should accept non-reciprocal tariffs? I mean, I'd like to know what the argument is. If the argument is, well, it'll be lower prices for Americans. Okay, that's a consideration. That's one economic consideration. But it also economically hurts a lot of Americans because we can't manufacture here. And it has hurt a lot of Americans. But look at, on the military power side, we have lost the ability to, for instance, have rare earth metals, right? We can't do those. We have lost the ability to manufacture. We don't manufacture our own ibuprofen or many other prescription drugs. There are considerations beyond purely economic. And Trump's considering those, and that doesn't fit in. And again, I was conservative before most of these critics were born. Okay? But if you're telling me, well, you're destroying the free market, my question's, where's this free market? Where's the free market in pharmaceuticals, right? They say that drugs are cheaper in Canada. Can I go buy? I'm waiting for a prescription for back pills at this very moment. Can I go get them from Toronto? No, I can't. It's not lawful for me to go get them. I could pay $8 up there. I don't know how much they'll cost here. More than $8.
Yeah.
So we don't have a free market here. We have a market that is basically controlled by government regulation. And the big pharma has a bunch of lobbyists who leverage that so they get the input they want. What Trump is doing is, hey, normal people, I'm going to be your voice and give you input. Because it's not that consumer price signals are going to change the price. Right? This is not a free market. It's not classic Adam Smith. It's not supply and demand.
Yeah, the invisible hand.
Government tells people essentially, directly or indirectly, what they can charge. Because, they stop us from shopping around. They allow monopolies, sometimes in the form of patents. But they have they have price power through Medicare, Medicaid, and such. The fact is, it's not a free market, and you as consumers, how do I drive the price down? Do I go get a different kind of, I don't know, Humira, the arthritis drug? Do I go get a different kind somewhere else? Is there someone else I can buy from cheaper? No. So you don't really have a free market. What you have is a government regulatory market. And what Trump is saying is, okay, I recognize that. I don't see all you free marketer guys going, let's free the market. I see you just saying, well, I don't want you to use your leverage politically. Well, Big Pharma uses its leverage politically.
Yeah.
I don't understand the moral argument against us having a say within the system that we don't prefer and that we didn't create. So, I mean, look, I get the whole, I get it about the objection to quote unquote price controls. But, well, that's how prices are set in this market. You guys created this system. I didn't. I just think it's fair that we use it to our advantage, right? My competition, look, the way I compete in this marketplace is not by searching for cheaper drugs. It's by influencing the government. It's the same way Big Pharma does, right?
I like that. I want to tell you a story that changed my life and my mother-in-law's life. I noticed for a couple of years that my mother-in-law was really struggling to hear us and to be able to interact with grandchildren. And she just wasn't as social as she used to be. Well, as the holidays went by, we laughed, we watched movies, and I noticed the struggle. Well, I noticed that it was mostly coming from her hearing. And so that's when we got her MD hearing aids. And wow, what a difference. I saw her confidence go up. She wanted to connect with the world, be more social. Now, this podcast is sponsored by MD Hearing, and I'm thrilled to share this incredible product with you. They make high quality, rechargeable hearing aids personalized to your hearing needs at a fraction of the cost of traditional hearing aids. Their Neo model costs 90% less than clinical hearing aids, and the discrete Neo XS is very small. This Neo XS, you can hardly see it in your ear. Now, right now, MD Hearing has cut the price in half. You can get a pair for just $297. Plus, there's a 45-day risk-free trial with 100% money-back guarantee. Visit shopmdhearing.com and use promo code Gardner to get a pair for $297, plus a free extra charging case, a $100 value. Go do it right now. Improve your hearing or give this gift to someone you love. It will bless their life. I like it. Here's a question for you. You know how anything Trump does, the Democrats figure out a way to oppose it. Later in the show, I'm going to ask you about they want all these refugees. Yeah. They want all these refugees, but not white refugees. Yes. So sticking with the drug thing, for decades, the Democrats have used, we'll get you abortions and we'll get you lower drug prices. And now you have Trump getting lower drug prices. So how are they going to say that Trump is bad if it's been one of their main campaign tools for extracting votes?
Well, among other things, they'll lie. They don't have a hypocrisy gene. So it doesn't care. And let's face it, Democrat voters are stupid. They're dumb. A lot of them are SSRI-ridden, sexually unsatisfied wine women. That's the ones I live around here in Los Angeles. The ones with hate has no home signs out front, who will also call the cops if they see a black person in their neighborhood. It's those people. And a lot of them are welfare cheats. They have a huge, look, they're talking about cutting Medicaid. What they're talking about cutting is able-bodied people getting free Medicare from the government, right? I'm all for that. Actually, I wouldn't give anybody free medical care, but I think able-bodied people especially, they're against that because they want a constituency of serfs. They want degraded people who come to them, Oliver Twist, may I have a little more? And it's pathetic and disgusting. I mean, who wants to live at the whim of someone else? Unfortunately, a significant number of people do. And that's what the Democrat Party, or one vital constituency of the Democrat Party, is. Trump's changed it up a little because some of our people are white working class. And the problem is, Democrats saw the way to win those people over, or at least try and buy them off, is to de-emphasize the whole working part of the working class. So they started giving benefits to people who were working. And that has a number of benefits. For instance, if you're at Walmart and you don't have to pay somebody a living wage because they also get Section 8 housing or they get free medical care from the government or something, That helps you as Walmart. The idea, and we talked about it with Big Pharma, the idea that big companies are these bastions of free enterprise and that opposing giant corporations is, violating the tenets of Adam Smith. It would make Milton Friedman roll over in his grave. Well, they're not. They're not competing in a free market. What they're doing is leveraging their ability to lobby for change, and focus money to get the government to essentially transfer wealth to them. They don't have to compete in a market for employees because their employees are going to get subsidized Medicaid, right? Where otherwise they'd be coming out of Walmart. Now, of course, the counter is, well, if you didn't have the government doing it, Walmart would have to. If Walmart was paying them above slave wages, the prices in Walmart would go up. Yeah, that's true. I would much rather, look, I've got problems with big corporations, but those guys, they're tight with a buck. I would much rather that companies like Walmart parcel out their healthcare benefits than the federal government do it, because the federal government's going to do it terribly. And remember, they don't want to do it well, okay? They want to do it badly. Now, look, I'm a veteran. I have a VA rating, and I get, because I'm a retiree, I get veterans medical care. They actually, but I do it through the insurance. It's called TRICARE. Today I walked in, I gave my number, paid my copay, I'm done. I'm finished. There's no bureaucracy for me to go through. It's very direct. They hate that. The government hates that. Or the Democrats hate that because they want a bunch of union workers processing, my back spasm problem, where we don't really need that. Contract it out to an insurance company. It's going to deal with it. And it works very well. I hear all these people unhappy with their health insurance. I'm very happy with mine. Because it actually performs a government function, which is giving me and millions of other veterans the benefits that we work for, legitimate benefits, without a lot of bureaucratic nonsense. So there's ways to do this stuff for the people you have to do it to. But that's another thing. I mean, we need to limit what we're doing to people who need it. There are tens of millions of people on food stamps. I'm getting tired of walking into a McDonald's and seeing we take EBT. Okay, if you're on EBT, first of all, you should be getting off EBT. You should be doing something so that you can support yourself like a normal person. But I'm not sure I want you getting a Big Mac. I want you getting, government cheese. Oh, Kurt, you're being petty. No, I'm not. I'm providing a disincentive to being a parasite. Because if you are on a program for a second longer than you absolutely need to, lightning can strike. Look, millions of people, because we don't have a manufacturing base. If the alternator goes out on their car, that is a life-altering event. If I need to pay $800 to get a new alternator, look, I was a lawyer. I'm fine. Okay? I'll get I put it on my credit card. I'll pay it off at the end of the month. It is not a problem for me or most other people, but or many other people. But there are people whose life, this is, you've screwed up this guy's life. If he doesn't have $800 for an alternator, he might not be able to go to work. We need people being able to go to work and save, so that $800 is not a ruinous event. Now, of course, there are always people who are going to, you drink too much, you sports gamble, you do dumb things, and you don't have $800 in savings when you need it because you were irresponsible. That's not who I'm talking about. Those people need to suffer the consequences of their action. But I'm talking about normal people who are trying to make it. And I know these people, right? There are people out there who are really actually working and doing all the right things, doing all the things we ask them, and they're living on the edge. And, I don't feel that society, maybe anecdotal, I don't feel society was like that in the 80s and 90s, back when we were in our last golden age. I thought if you wanted to do something, you could go out and do it. And that's what we want to get back to. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. That's what I think the America First people, the MAGA people, want, which is a country where if you, well, this will sound familiar, work hard and play by the rules, right? You're going to do okay. And if something terrible happens, you're going to get taken care of till you get back on your feet, but your job is get back on your feet. The default setting is you support yourself. And a lot of the problems in America now are the result of people trying to create a way to divorce people from responsibility for their own bad choices. And that's got to change.
I think it will. Let me switch gears with you back to how are the Democrats going to defend this? So Trump's under pressure to bring in millions of refugees from countries all over the world. He gets word that down in South Africa, they're killing white people to steal their farms. They're killing white people to steal their homes and their land and their property and their business. So he says, we're going to investigate this. It doesn't look good. He says these people need asylum. Genuinely, they need to be refugees. They bring them over, but because they have white skin, now Democrats are saying, you can't bring in white refugees. This is not what refugees in America are about. And yet under Biden, didn't they want to bring in millions of white Ukrainians? I don't know. What are your thoughts on Trump bringing these people from South Africa?
Well, look, first of all, the Democratic Party is made up of people who hate white people. And that especially includes the white people, because they kind of take themselves out of it. They think, oh, well, when I say white people, I mean the guy who's driving the truck, the farmer, those guys who believe in Jesus and own guns and fight our wars and fuel us and feed us and build things. Those guys. They also cater along to racial scumbags who hate white people. And when you bring in white people from a garbage country like South Africa, and it is a garbage country, it is a race-based dictatorship that is actively oppressive to people based on the color of their skin, that's embarrassing to them. They don't like to see that. What they've wanted to do for a long time is make Americans identify by race. Except they didn't want the generic white American to do that. Now, one of the greatest victories of America was for so long, white Americans, when you went up to them and go, what are you? Well, I'm an American. They wouldn't say, well, I'm a black guy, or I'm a Hispanic. No, they go, well, I'm an American. What are you I don't identify as white. That doesn't enter into my conscience. It doesn't mean anything to me. Okay, maybe my grandma was from Italy. I have a great pasta recipe. Okay, I have a great pasta recipe. But it doesn't. It's not who I am. I mean, I've got the most German name in the world. My family came over here 250 years ago. I have no affinity for Germany. In fact, I served there in the army. I actively disliked being in Germany. It doesn't mean anything. The victory of America was making the majority ethnic group not identify as an ethnic group. Now, as somebody who served in the Balkans and saw that Village A, which may be Albanian, living next to Village B, which may be Serbian, for 800 years, and they suddenly decide they're going to murder each other. That happened. Okay, because ethnicity, Tito tamped down the ethnicity stuff when Slobodan Milosevic decided to start using that for personal power. Suddenly it became important, and they started killing each other. That's what people do when they're ethnically motivated. It leads to violence. And so the great victory in America is we had a majority of people, the mass majority of people, who did not identify by ethnicity, and we're happy to invite people in from all over the world. Democrats decided we will make these people a target. It was really not the upper class people, the kind of ruling class Democrats. There are white people, and then there are like, our kind of white people, from San Francisco and Martha's Vineyard and that sort of thing. And it was the problem with this is eventually, if you tell somebody you're bad because you're white, it's okay to commit violence upon you because you're white. We're not going to let white refugees in. Maybe they're going to start identifying by their skin color, and that's a bad thing. That's something we don't want. That's foolishness. But that's also human nature because you can't change your color. So I think they've I think this, like so many things Trump maneuvers them into, illustrates their hypocrisy to normal Americans who will default to normality, because Americans are nice. They default to normality. They're like, oh, everything's fine. Everything works. You've got to, things have to be really bad before they go, I grew up believing in the system. Now it's kind of falling apart. Trump is a warning shot that people are thinking the system's falling apart. And the Democrats have two options. They can address the legitimate concerns of the people. Like I said, the racial polarization is one of them. The men pretending to be girls thing is one of them. The crime thing is one. The illegal alien things is one of them. They can address those problems, or they can double down on shut up, you're a racist, sexist, transphobe, whatever. Shut up. They're going with shut up. And we've seen it before, right? 1968, 1984, or 80 to 84, 68 to 72. In 68, they ran a pretty normal left-wing, kind of center-left guy, Humphrey, against Nixon. He lost. They went radical left, nominated McGovern, and got blown out. I mean, blown out. They won, what, 2 states? 4 states? Something like that. Then in 80, they had kind of a centrist-y guy, Carter, against Reagan, who, like Nixon, was a reaction against Democrat extremism. And then Reagan comes back. It's Morning in America in 1984. And you got him running against Walter Mondale, the guy who said, wow, I'm going to raise your taxes. He got blown out. I think he won, Minnesota and District of Columbia. The Democrats tend to go left first. Then eventually they move backwards. Carter was more of a centrist after McGovern. In 1992, you had Bill Clinton, who came in, and Bill Clinton basically said, you know what? Crime is wrong, and you should support yourself. For abortion, safe, legal, and rare. I want an America where people who work hard, play by the rules, can succeed. Very centrist message, very appealing. I don't think he meant most of it, but that's a very appealing message, and he managed to win a plurality of votes. I don't know if he'd have won if Perot hadn't jumped in, but it certainly didn't. Bush certainly didn't help himself by lying about taxes. Read my lips. Just kidding. And which we're also seeing today. There are Republicans out there who think, hey, maybe we should raise some taxes here. No, Republicans lose when they raise taxes. Don't do that. Cut spending. Oh, we don't want to cut spending. People will be offended. People should be offended. If they're happy, I'm unhappy. I want them scandalized. I can't believe you're cutting this. I want Medicaid cut. Okay? I want the EBT cut. I want these things. I want USAID funding cut. I don't understand why we're subsidizing, transgender Ecuadorian mime troops. Doesn't seem to me to be a good use of my money.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Final question. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, sure.
Just from a legal perspective, I know that you watched Letitia James and Alvin Bragg viciously go after Trump Now she's being criminally investigated. I think I read that they are going to do a grand jury. What are your thoughts on that Letitia James situation?
Oh, I've been saying it so often. No one is above the law. No one's above the law. Letitia James specifically ran on a platform of, I'm going to find somebody on this guy. Okay. All right. I mean, I don't want that rule. That's not the rule I want, but you've overridden me. Okay. You've made it the rule. So now we're going to play it. And of course, the Democrats are dirtier. They are a corrupt party, especially the urban Democrats like Letitia James. She's absolutely filthy. She's just, and the evidence that's already out there is pretty damning. I think this is great. I am never a fan of unilateral disarmament. I will play by the rules you set. Okay, if we're out somewhere and you want to get in my face and start calling me names, I'll call you names back. If you want to throw a punch, I'm going to do my best to knock your teeth out. You choose. I'm going to let you decide how far we want to go. You decided we're going to go after political opponents using the legal system. Okay. Told you that's a bad idea. Warned you about it. You didn't listen. Fine. That's the rules. The fringe benefit here is we don't even have to frame people. She framed Donald Trump, right, in her civil suit, just like Bragg framed him in the criminal suit by taking non-crimes and convicting them of things that were not crimes, false charges. Trump's got it easy. He doesn't have to because she is corrupt. And Democrats are corrupt. And they have been, since the beginning. You don't become an urban party, and they are the party of the cities. You don't become an urban party being honest. Okay? They're all dirty. And they stupidly decided, well, I'm going to make it so my opponents have an excuse to look deep, do a deep dive at me, go on a fishing expedition, see what they find. Bad idea. If you're Menendez and you've got gold bars under your bed, maybe you want to keep your mouth shut. I mean, it's just a dumb idea. But look, I am all ready to return to the old rules where we don't go looking for ways to use the justice system against our political opponents. I would love that. But the rules have changed, so two things have to happen. First, I need an unequivocal and convincing representation that we're going back to the old rules, that the minute we slow down and you guys get power, it doesn't start up again. I need you to understand and acknowledge that you were wrong so that I can be confident the rules have really changed back. Second thing is you've got to suffer. You have to have a certain amount of suffering. See, I'm not one of those conservatives who suddenly got queasy about the idea of retribution. We get people, well, we shouldn't drop to their level and retaliate against them. Okay, my Republican Party was not a party that eschewed the idea of punishment, right? If you do something wrong, you should suffer the consequences. You should hurt. Yet that teaches you not to do it, one, teaches other people not to do it, two, and three, emphasizes the effectiveness of a justice system. Because if you can't get satisfaction through the justice system, you're going to get satisfaction another way. And I prefer not to have that. Like I said, I served in the Balkans where people were killing each other. I prefer to have a functional government. That's just me. And again, me and a lot of other guys who, may have military or law enforcement experience and have guns, I'm a lot less worried about the personal impact of civil unrest upon me and mine than perhaps some of the people who seem to be pulling blocks out of the Jenga tower that is our society willy-nilly. Okay, guys, a lot of that woman I mentioned who has a sign out front that said, hate has no home here. she's going to be the first one they break down the door in and gang rape. You're not getting in my door and coming out, or tens of millions of other Americans. Okay, I'm not. I I was in the Los Angeles riots as a soldier. I've got that badge. I would like to go back to the old system, but I need to know we're going back to it, and I need the people who violated it to suffer adequately the punishment for their wrong, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Well, Jamie Raskins has already said, when we get back into power, and we will not be kind to those that betrayed us. So, I mean, they're already letting people know. Yeah, they're already letting people know.
Okay, if that's the way you want to play it, Jamie, I wonder if Jamie thinks the military is made up of people who will go, kill their own families, their brothers, fathers, sisters, for the likes of Jamie Raskin. They think that's how it's going to work out. Now, Jamie Raskin, of course, like all of his generation or all of his type, never served. So I think he ought to take my advice that not to try and write checks he doesn't have the ammunition to cash. Yeah. Just saying. It's a bad idea. Let's go back to how it was. Offers open, doors open. We can go back to how it was. But if you want to push, it ain't going to work. Look, people like me are never going to live as serfs in our country. We're never going to accept being second-class citizens. We're not going to accept being oppressed. We're not going to accept being disenfranchised. That option does not exist. And if you try and shove that square peg into that round hole, it's just not going to work. So but there's a better way. We've got it right there. It's our Constitution. We can go back to that, go back to our norms, solve our problems like civilized people. If you decide, nope, I want power to be the currency of how we decide things, raw power, okay, what's your idol, Chairman Mao, say about the origin of power? It comes from the barrel of the gun. Are you willing to do that? I'm willing to do it to defend my country, my Constitution. How about you?
Yeah.
Let's not.
Yeah.
Bad idea. Bad idea on the 250th anniversary of Lexington and Concord.
Can we go back to the old rules after we get Letitia James, though? Just asking.
Yes.
She's toast. I've seen the evidence. She's there. That's not going to do well.
Obviously everybody deserves a fair trial, and I want to emphasize strongly that we should never frame anybody for anything.
Agreed.
It is. First of all, it's off the table. The Bible says you shall not bear witness. So God has already told us we can't do that. That's not an option for us if you're religious. If you are just purely utilitarian, there is no quicker way to lose people's trust, and justifiably so, than by lying to them. So we should never do that. It is unjust. I don't want to do that even to my enemies. I will beat them fair and square. So.
Okay. Kurt, in our final minutes, you've got a new book out, Lost Angeles. Tell us about that, and then I'll put a direct link so people can check it out.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. My wife, Irina Moises, and I wrote Lost Angeles. It is a 40s noir kind of book with some fun fantasy elements. It's fun. It has a lot of the same humor the Kelly Turnbull books had. If you're a conservative, you're going to read it and you're going to like it. You're going to laugh, but it's also exciting and fun. I am so dedicated to the idea of putting fun back in literature. And I even tried to with my last book, which was the attack about a terrorist attack on America following 10/7. I tried to at least make it so it's not like a Bataan death march of misery. Los Angeles is just straight out fun. If you like, guys in the 40s talking 40s lingo and Tommy guns and all sorts of stuff, tough guys, tough dames. It is a fun book. It is designed so you can open it up, read it on an afternoon, and you're just like, okay, I had a good time. There's so much stuff, Stephen, that they just want to make it painful and miserable. And here's 10 pages on how the guy's daddy didn't love him. And it just, and there's no wokeness, it's just straight up fun. Los Angeles, Silver Bullets on the Sunset Strip. It's just a lot of fun. I hope people will check it out.
Okay. I'm going to put a direct link down below as well as to your X account so people can follow you. Kurt, thank you so much for coming on. I'll put those links as I promised. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.